Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Just before we get going with the proceedings, just to say this marquee yesterday got very warm indeed quite quickly. So if you feel unwell or in any way distressed, please raise your hand. We've got first aiders here. And the obligatory, if your mobile phone is currently on, if you could place it to silent or turn it off, we would be most grateful. So welcome to this 2023 awards ceremony. Professor Sir Mike Gregory, awardees, guests, supporters and colleagues. Welcome to this University of Cambridge awards ceremony. Everyone here today and watching online around the world via our live stream, welcome to the Institute of Continuing Education and Madingley Hall. It's been a long wait. Our last in-person ceremony, due to our dates and cycling, was 2019, and of course then the pandemic. But we've made it in the end. So my name is Jim Gazzard. I'm the Director of Continuing Education here at the Institute. And it's my privilege to convene this awards ceremony. This is a public recognition and a celebration of learning, bringing our learning community together. Over the course of this weekend, around 1,000 learners, 500 in person, awardees from the 2019-20, 2020-21 and 21-22 academic years, the wretched COVID-affected years, will be formally recognised for their significant academic achievements. So as mentioned, this is our first in-person awards ceremony since the pandemic. And as such, my colleagues would like to record our condolences to anyone here today who has experienced loss and bereavement during the pandemic or continues to suffer from the effects of long COVID. I would like to pay tribute to my colleagues at Madingley Hall, who bravely kept the hall open during the dark times of spring and summer 2020. We hosted NHS professionals here who couldn't return to their families because their families were shielding. And it was our honour to support those critical frontline workers. I would also like to acknowledge all our students and tutors who are critical workers themselves, often based in schools and healthcare settings. Thank you for everything you did. And to my academic and professional services colleagues, who quite literally flipped their teaching to fully online delivery overnight. That was a fantastic achievement. And also, the Institute's Public Understanding of Science Fellow, Dr. Chris Smith, aka the Naked Scientist, was an optimistic and evidence-led and reassuring presence throughout. An expert on local and national and international TV and radio on a daily basis. I often joke there were many days when I woke up to Chris speaking on Radio 4 and fell asleep with him on Sky News or CNN or Al Jazeera. So a virology expert setting out the science-based facts in a positive way during a media frenzy, which in my opinion often demonstrated a concerning lack of scientific literacy. So yesterday, I was rather hoping to see some news editors and producers and politicians studying on our certificate on infectious diseases. But alas, I don't think we did see them. But in a far brighter outlook, the pandemic turned out to be a global catalyst for lifelong learning. During the lockdowns, we heard time and time again from our learners that their classes were a lifeline, an oasis against the challenging times of COVID. Something meaningful to hold on to, a fillip to their mental well-being, and a chance to escape the pressures of life and explore an academic field. So perhaps an informal conversation on a Zoom call before the lectures started, a funny comment in chat, a story from a fellow student that lifted the spirits. Throughout the pandemic, you learnt together as peers, fellow travellers united in learning, resilient, tough, and quite frankly, I think you should be proud of yourselves. We know that the pandemic was a moment to reflect on career plans. Perhaps as part of the so-called Great Resignation, the Great Reshuffle, many of you have highlighted to us that you use your learning and the networks you formed in virtual classrooms to explore new job and career opportunities, or perhaps accelerate your current career trajectory. So for awardees who've set out on a new career arc, secured much hoped for promotion, or used confidence to take perhaps a role as a volunteer, well done and don't stop. For around 15% of you, this was your first experience in higher education, and I really wish to congratulate that cohort. It is a major deal to take your first steps at university, particularly as a mature learner. Putting yourself out there, often inviting criticism, doubt, sometimes dealing with the baggage of the past. So let's hereby confine those naysayers and doubters to the bin of history. Here's to a new start, a new story, new opportunities. Your knowledge and skills, networks, friendships, confidence, I hope, have set you on a path to a lifetime of learning. And a Cambridge qualification is hard-earned. It is a noteworthy achievement. More broadly, we know from studies of adults, anyone engaged with lifelong learning of any kind, from joining a book club to studying molecular biology, studying for any purpose, you are more likely to be mentally and physically healthier. In work, engaged in their job, more likely to be participating civically as a school governor or JP, fundraiser, whatever it may be. Learning is a social activity, so you're less likely to be isolated and lonely. More importantly, most importantly, you're acting as role models for children and grandchildren, normalizing learning as an enriching part of the fabric of life. So I think it's important to think about those principles as we here celebrate our 150 years since the formal syndication by the University of Cambridge in 1873. Our institute was then called the Local Lectures Syndicate, and it's believed to be the first example of an open university of this kind. In the mid-1860s, Anne Clough, a visionary educationalist and suffragist, Josephine Butler, a fierce campaigner and feminist, lobbied the university. Butler and Clough pushed the university to open its teaching to women and working men. A 24-year-old radical Cambridge mathematician called James Stewart answered their call and began lecturing in the towns and cities of northern England in 1867. And the lectures were oversubscribed and well received. And the first steps of this, what is now a global continuing education movement led by universities, had been taken. The lectures were controversial, not by content and subject, they were astronomy and scientific inquiry lectures, but instead by the fact that they were happening, that they existed. Societal change was in the air. Adult education was one of several strands forming on the long and still ongoing path to gender equality. There was a deliberate intention to educate citizens to accelerate the cause of universal suffrage, the vote for everyone, and the early forms of trade unions, empowering individuals to tell their employers what they wanted. So grand aspirations, quite radical things. When the mainstream media portray lifelong learning as, watercolors at the village hall, that's a really valid form of lifelong learning, but it demeans it in terms of what it was actually all about. It had a civic purpose, it had a broader, radical purpose. So they were grand aspirations in the 1860s. To put this into some context, in terms of the social conventions of the day, when Stuart completed his talks, a man had to be summoned to give the vote of thanks for the female organisers and students. It would have been deeply inappropriate for them to do so. The end of coverture in England through the 1870 Married Women's Property Act was still 3 years away. Women were considered to be the possessions of their husbands when this all started. So we must acknowledge the vision and courage of Clough and Butler, our founders. Clough, of course, went on to become the first principal of Newnham College, Cambridge, at the vanguard of higher education for women. Butler did so much for women's and children's rights, preventing human trafficking, protecting the most vulnerable in society. So Clough and Butler were far-sighted people, remarkable, and their central roles in university extension must never be forgotten. Of course, as a man, James Stewart is often cast as the leading actor, the founding father of extramural education. Intelligent, confident, connected. He was a fellow at Trinity College, Cambridge. Adept at navigating the university's rather conservative bureaucracy and building partnerships. Although I have to say, unlike many others since, Stewart was unsuccessful when attempting to get the university or colleges to help fund continuing education, and that challenge goes on still today. June 1873, 5 years of preparatory work, the local lectures syndicate was authorised by the university. The official first lectures, entitled Force and Motion, were given by T.O. Harding in Derby at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, the 8th of October, 1873. V.H. Stanton began his lectures on political economy in Leicester, and E.B. Burke's course on English literature, relevant today, of course, began in Nottingham a few days later. They were a bit nervous. They had to wait for the Goose Fair to end because they thought enrolments would be very low until the fair had passed. So Harding, Stanton, and Burke's were contemporaries of James Stewart at Trinity College. Stewart and his successors began to form what has been called an extramural empire. Sounds quite grand, doesn't it? Something out of Star Wars or something. But and this extended from Barnstaple and Portsmouth to York and Newcastle. Local centres, peripatetic tutors using the new railways, and administrative offices in Cambridge quickly built this amazing nationwide educational network. Many peripatetic lecturers and administrators were important agents in the creation of the university colleges in Sheffield, Exeter, and Nottingham. They also advised on the formation of the University of Liverpool. So it's interesting to reflect now how these highly selective universities, core members of the Russell Group, were formed as regional adult education centres. Peripatetic tutor roles allowed bright young graduates to cut their academic teeth, whilst also, in some cases, following other passions. Cambridge employed regional tutors across the years, included E.M. Forster, J.B. Priestley, for example, and some of their incredible literary works were written on buses and trains in between going different local lectures centres. George Mallory you may have heard of. He took a leave of absence from his lecturing role here to lead the infamous 1924 expedition to Everest. So we rather think that one of our colleagues was the first person to the top of Everest. But those of you who know the history, unfortunately, know that he didn't get back to tell the tale, so we can't verify that. Much later in the early 1970s, Mike Brearley went on to captain the England cricket team, leading the famous 1981 Botham's Ashes. He acted as a regional tutor from this institute. The early teaching observations and critiques of some of the above were fairly scathing, noting in some cases worrying pronunciation and a tendency to boredom. But obviously our student surveys say something very different today, I'm very pleased to report. So surprisingly, the first female tutor was not admitted to the register until 1893. Ellen MacArthur was a historian at Girton and later became the first woman to receive a Doctor of Letters degree at Trinity College, Dublin. The Cambridge-led local centres formed an important part of the Institute's identity for a century. Town libraries, church halls, rooms above pubs, students' homes, used as venues for lively exchanges on everything from ornithology to democracy. But as a constant, peer learning was crucial, learning from one another, different views, backgrounds, ideas, and learning how to disagree respectfully with evidence, and not the shrieking echo chambers that sometimes dominate conversations today. And I hope that's been preserved in the learning that you have seen here. Of course, over the years, the models of delivery have changed, now with much teaching delivered fully online or in blended ways, allowing students to access study from home, work, or on the road. Throughout the past 150 years, the funding situation has been precarious and continues to be. Over the past 30 years, as you'll know, over 2/3 of continuing education centres led by universities in England have closed or have been completely repurposed. We in Cambridge, we've had to innovate, introducing new approaches. For example, in 1988, our predecessors founded the Cambridge Programme for Industry, which is now called the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership, one of the greatest environmental consultancies and training departments anywhere. In the 1990s, postgraduate degrees were introduced, and in 2023 we'll enrol here this year around 500 MST students in fields ranging from the history of art to artificial intelligence. As you will know well, new academic disciplines have been introduced over the past 10 or 15 years, including coaching, creative writing, with many of our graduates enjoying considerable success as practitioners and authors. Across the summer, you may have read the best-selling Skandar and the Unicorn Thief by A.F. Stedman, or watch the primetime ITV drama The Confessions of Franny Langton by Sarah Collins, of course both graduates from this institute. In 2019, we launched a new partnership with the online platform edX, and since then, over 200,000 students have studied with us around the world on free-to-access courses. We've led the creation of levy-funded apprenticeships at Cambridge in fields such as architecture, broadening access to professions. There we are. Someone didn't hear the awardees. That's right. So this year, working with partnerships, in partnership with the University of East Anglia and Anglia Ruskin, we've led the development of a new pre-medical programme supporting adults from all backgrounds to acquire the knowledge and skills to apply to medical school at Cambridge, UEA and ARU, and to help address the chronic shortage of doctors in the east of England. Over the past 5 years, we've almost doubled the number of award-bearing course enrolments, and we look ahead to the future, the next 150 years, with optimism. Some of you may have seen in the media this week, there's something called the Teaching Excellence Framework. The results have been published. And of course, the University of Cambridge is what's called triple gold, the highest standard. There were only 46 universities in the UK to achieve that standard. But for the first time, our subdegrees, the certificates and diplomas, were part of that metric. I'm really delighted to say, on behalf of my colleagues and all students, that we received 2 outstanding citations for the quality of part-time higher education at Cambridge. And those TEF panels are pretty serious endeavours, so they're not giving out credit unless it is due. In light of the Lifelong Learning Bill, which was written into law in England only last week, we are now preparing to modularise our undergraduate portfolio to allow more adults to study through the lifelong learning entitlement from 2025 onwards. In short, 150 years ago and today, I hope, we are here to support adults from all backgrounds, whether having any previous study or not, to learn for professional and personal development. But we must remain agile, and we're certainly not complacent. The past 150 years has been a roller coaster, and the next 5 or 10 years will be even more turbulent. I would like to acknowledge our generous donors who've enabled tuition fees to be reduced, predominantly for students studying for the first time university and those affected by global conflict and war. And many are here today. The generosity of our supporters has changed lives, and I am incredibly grateful for all of our supporters. I'd also like to say thank you to 2 more groups. Firstly, to my colleagues, to unsung heroes in marketing and admissions and administration, student support, to academic colleagues and 300 panel tutors. You're all superb, delivering a learner-centered approach. Your talent, teaching, organisation enrich our classes. The commitment to lifelong learning is humbling. They certainly put up with a lot from me, and I'm sorry to say, but also increasing burden that regulators are imposing upon us. And they deliver more than can be reasonably asked. Continuing education is no place for the faint-hearted. You will know that we're teaching most weekends. We deliver the university's official summer programme. So we teach 46, 47 weeks of the year. There are no 8-week Cambridge terms for us, nor for our students. So I'm grateful for their commitment to open access learning and their phenomenal resilience, I should say. Might be. Yeah. It's all of those Monday morning management meetings, isn't it? It gets wired into your brain. So importantly, I want to pay tribute to all the guests in the audience and watching online. Your support of our learners is vital. I know that many of you will have made financial sacrifices to help pay for the tuition fees of your loved ones. I know that all of you will have given up precious time with them to allow them to study. And I know that many of you will have believed in our learners when they might not have done so themselves. And for the little things, the cups of tea, the words of encouragement, picking up the kids, walking the dogs when assignment deadlines are due. You've played a critical role in our learners' success. And I wonder whether our learners might wish to thank their guests in the traditional way, just remember. And I can't resist the recruitment drive. I just hope that some of you might actually wish to be students here with us in the future on the guest side as well. So to close my remarks, in a few minutes, your academic achievements will be recognised and your University of Cambridge qualification officially conferred. And as you queue up to go on the stage, please take a few moments and smile and just think about the hard work and the outcomes. And keep that smile going here for the photograph in the middle. It'll be in the downstairs loo forever if you're not getting it. We don't want any grumpy faces. So be proud of your achievements. Be proud of your peers' achievements. And please clap and cheer the first and last awardee equally as loudly. You all deserve our recognition. To be awarded a Cambridge qualification is a major accomplishment. And I would argue to do so as a mature part-time learner, even more so. So congratulations. We're grateful that you chose to study with us. And we hope you will go on to be powerful advocates for lifelong learning, continuing your learning journey here at Cambridge or elsewhere. So thank you very much indeed, and enjoy your day. As we begin our ceremony, it now gives me great pleasure to recognise our honorary awardee for their excellence in continuing education. Professor Sir Mike, I wish to present to you Dr. Midge Gillies to receive an honorary award for excellence in continuing education. Midge is a graduate of this university, the University of Cambridge, holds a PhD from the University of East Anglia. Midge has taught at the Institute for over 20 years. She says she decided to apply to become a panel tutor because she was here for a weekend course at Madingley Hall and thought so much of it and thought it was great and wanted to get involved with teaching. And she also said she thought it would get her out of the house, so that was a positive. In one article, Midge recalls about her early teaching experiences. I remember being absolutely terrified, she says, thinking these strangers will realise what a fraud I am. But then I loved it. I met all sorts of amazing people. I remember teaching a woman who'd escaped Nazi Austria on the Kindertransport and wrote about seeing Himmler marching down the street. And it's such a privilege to meet someone like that, she said, and hear their stories. You know, when I see books that were written here by student authors, on the features tables at Waterstones and that kind of thing, I know that Midge will have played a part in nurturing that process because she is interested in all her students' stories and what they have to say. So there's nothing fraudulent about her highly authentic and personalised approach to teaching and mentoring. She's taught on most types of programmes, and until recently was the academic director of creative writing here, first taking up that post in 2016. She was the Royal Literary Fund Fellow at Magdalen College for 3 years. She is the author of several books, including her latest, Piccadilly, The Circus at the Heart of London, and earlier publications, including the excellent Amy Johnson, Queen of the Air. She's previously written for The Guardian, Independent, and Financial Times. In 2019, she was awarded the Pilkington Prize for Teaching Excellence at the University of Cambridge, and in 2021, shortlisted and highly commended for inclusive practice by Cambridge Students' Union. Midge says that teaching has introduced her to students and colleagues around the world, and she says that she believes that's made her a better writer and almost certainly a better human being. But much more than this, and as many of you will know here through direct experience, it's Midge's intelligence, skill, vision that has been central in forming the creative writing talk portfolio at the Institute, the Cambridge Centre for Creative Writing, a nationally leading endeavour. I can talk to you about how she's driven innovative new undergraduate and postgraduate programmes, oversaw as academic director the first edX Micro Masters, and hence Cambridge's first ever stackable programme, supported emerging authors to secure publishing deals, and has doubled course enrolments. But that would be to devalue the most important thing. The most important thing that Midge has done has created communities of learning around creative writing. Midge speaks equally about a student writing their family history or stories for their kids, as those students receiving record advances for smash hits publications, or those selling the film rights of a book to a Hollywood production house. All matter equally. Through insight, good humour, and quite simply, a human-centred approach, Midge understands that we're all writing to try to make sense of things, understand life, communicate complex messages in serious or compelling or entertaining ways. So whether the audience is 1 or 100 million, it doesn't matter. If the writing helps that person express thoughts, capture a memory, paint new pictures with their words, then that learning has real value, and Midge has led that. She is the kind of continuing education professional who will ensure that our sector will go on and thrive. Because for her, this starts with what students need. When you put the learner at the heart of your endeavours and strive to fight and deliver for what they need, then amazing things will follow. And that has been the case with Midge's teaching here. So, before being presented with her award for excellence in continuing education, I would like to invite Midge to the lectern to say a few words.